What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 39th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined by a good friend, a colleague, Windows Central's very own Samuel Tolbert. How you doing on this fine Saturday, my man?
I am doing really well, Miles. Thank you for asking. You know, just the everyday loop and grind of work getting to me, but it's going well. It's going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you on. A little known fact: Sam and I started working for Future, which is basically the owners of Windows Central,
Right.
about a week apart. So we've been taking this ride together. So I'm excited to have you on the show. We have a bunch of amazing topics to talk about today. Redfall leaked. We got Halo Infinite Flights. We're going to be asking burning questions like, does Xbox need a superhero? And where is Konami? That and so much more. But before we get into all of that, Sam, for all the lovely people hanging with us on this Saturday morning, give us a breakdown of who you are, where people can find you, and most importantly, why you love gaming.
Yeah, so obviously I'm Samuel Tolbert, freelance writer over at Windows Central and a couple of other Future sites in the network. Like Miles said, we've been working together. We went through training together at the same time. I remember we were filling out paperwork basically at the same time. I think he was a week after me. Started July 2019, I want to say.
Yep.
Is our start date. So that was fun. It's been a great journey over 2 years so far. You're killing it over on the video side here. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, you can find me. Sorry, I hate socials. You can find me on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. That's Tolbert. Simple. I've just got my name as my handle. It's very easy. Come talk to me, yell at me for my opinions. I love it. Seriously. And I love games because they let me escape, is what I would say. You know, I fell in love with games at age 5 with Age of Empires 2. You know, my parents were like, here's your history. This is how you're going to start out history. You've got a computer. It barely runs anything, but it did run Age of Empires 2, and I just fell in love. I absolutely fell in love. I still have a burning love for real-time strategy games to this day. Age of Empires 4 coming out soon. Cannot wait for that. But yeah, from there, it just spiraled out. My first console was an original Xbox when I was 11 years old. When I was 11 years old, got an original Xbox, played Halo, played Knights of the Old Republic, a game that we're going to... Yeah, relevant, right? Really relevant. That was one of the first games I played. And yeah, just been a fan of Xbox ever since. Been a fan of gaming ever since. Really simple.
You'd love to hear it. Yeah, it's awesome to kind of get everyone's, insights into where they started, because everyone's story is a little bit different. But for a lot of us who are, in the community, engaging with podcasts, talking about video games every day, there's similarities to how we all got here and why we love it. And so that's one thing, regardless of where you want to play or what you prefer, that we can all at least come together on it and celebrate. So I'm excited. I'm excited to dive into it because, news has been slow in the Xbox camp in, recent months. Let's be real. But there's been a lot of really big things and a lot of, I guess, controversial things this week. So first up, I want to talk about something that broke late last night, and that is the Redfall leaks. We have images. We have real images of pre-alpha build of Redfall, and it's given us a better idea of what this game is. For people who don't remember, the initial reveal was a CG trailer, and a lot of people likened it to Left 4 Dead, and they were concerned that this was a Left 4 Dead clone or a Back 4 Blood clone, and they had come out immediately and said, no, it's not Left 4 Dead. That's not what this is. This is a co-op shooter, but it is not Left 4 Dead. And now that we've seen the images, we do have a better idea of what this actually is. And Sam, I want to get your takes. I think this looks like Borderlands. I think this looks like a vampire-themed Borderlands game. Where are you sitting after seeing these screenshots?
Yeah, so I think it's worth re-emphasizing, Miles, like these are early screenshots. I don't even think this is alpha. I think this is pre-alpha. This is bordering on gray box, really. Some of these areas don't have textures. There's glitches. It's fine. It's very early. These screenshots were not meant to be seen. So, people who I've seen some people like criticizing the graphics. Come on, y'all. Come on, simmer down. Game's like a year away, 11 months away. Give them some time. But no, I agree with you 100%. I was never of the opinion that this was Arcane meets Left 4 Dead. I never got that. It never seemed to me like something Arcane would do. It didn't seem like something that fits with their DNA. It doesn't fit with how they make games. They make a lot of different games, but all of them are about player agency, right? It's about having realistic reactions to what the player does in the world. Where in Prey, you shoot a foam dart at a button, it actually activates the button, and you can solve puzzles that way. In Dishonored, choosing how you kill people, it spreads corruption through the city, and so on and so on. So that's a very long-winded way of me saying, yes, I agree with you. It looks like Borderlands meets maybe Dishonored, or even Prey. I actually think the visual style seems slightly reminiscent of Prey. A lot of the textures, a lot of the character designs, in engine now that it's not the CGI trailer that we saw back at Xbox's E3 showcase. You know, it looks good. I'm. It's very, very early. I want them to do a proper reveal, but
Yeah.
this does not dampen my enthusiasm, is I guess the way I'll say it.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. I think what's special about Arcane, and like you mentioned, why people love Arcane, is that player agency. And we had people concerned after the initial reveal, just simply due to the fact that this was a multiplayer game. And for me and my preferences, I don't think that ever inherently makes a game bad. Some people, have their concerns, prefer to play single player, but the idea of a true Arcane formula with an open world co-op setting for me is incredibly exciting. So seeing glimpses of that, seeing the loot system, the RPG mechanics, and then I want to believe that there's going to be that player agency, that you're going to be able to set up elaborate, ridiculous traps or combine special abilities in unique ways that really kind of capture what Arcane does best. And if they successfully deliver that, I'm going to be playing a ton of this. But yeah, we only have, I think, about 8 screenshots. Only 3 of them I would consider like very high quality. Like you mentioned, others have no textures in certain areas. A lot of them have filler text in obvious areas. But I'll ask you, and I'll ask the chat. Do you have any legit concerns or criticisms with this being a looter shooter?
Not yet, is the way I will choose to answer that. I don't have concerns yet. Arcane, I trust Arcane. I love Arcane. Dishonored is one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time, actually. I think the 2017 reboot of Prey is criminally underrated. Criminally. Excellent game. It has FPS boost and keeps its high resolution, so go play that on your Series X or your Series S if you haven't already. It's in Game Pass, obviously. Brilliant game. So I don't have concerns yet. As long as the player agency and what makes an Arcane game hasn't been put on the back foot, isn't in the back seat compared to the loot and the RPG mechanics. If that is the case, I may have a problem or 3. But until such a time, until that is proven, I choose to believe that Arcane Austin knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and we've gotten some details, like specifics about these screenshots, because it kind of started with screenshot dump, and that's all we had, and people were filling in the gaps. And then there's been some context from this leaker that says, the game can be played solo. There's no AI fills for your teammates. If you want to just jump in and play Redfall completely solo, you can. So that is cool. I'm glad that's still an option, because I've been playing Aliens Fireteam Elite recently, and I love it. Amazing co-op game. Playing it single player is so rough because the AI is so bad, and it sucks because I've seen people like playing it solo and like, I can't even beat stages. And I'm glad to hear that won't be the case with Redfall, that they've taken that into consideration, it sounds like, in a meaningful way, so that you can just go in by yourself, play as a single character, and not have to rely on AI companions to get you out of a bind.
Yep, absolutely. We're on the same page with this game. 100%.
Beautiful. Everyone knows I prefer co-op. I talk about it all the time. Yep. I know not everyone does. And so I do appreciate when games strike that balance in a cool way, because we all have our preferences, and it's important that the game caters to both. And it sucks when a game is really good one way and really bad another way. So like you said, I trust Arcane. I think this is going to be great. I'm going to give a quick shout out to the 120 people rocking with us already. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you are new to the show, we stream live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're digging the show, hit that like button and share it out. I'm going to get to a super chat from the legendary, the iconic Mr. Joanna Dark. who says hello to Miles the Goat Dompier and today's incredible guest, Samuel T. What game would make you take out your old console? For me, it's currently Fatal Frame 2 and 3, Siren, and Metal Gear Solid 4. Do you have any games that aren't available on current platforms that you will dig a console out of your closet for and hook up and play?
Uh, he said it there. Shout out to him. Metal Gear Solid 4. It pains me. It pains me that that game cannot be played on a modern console. The you cannot play through the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise from beginning to end on a single platform. It's all over the place. Backward compatibility does help on Xbox. You have a couple of those games in there. 2 and 3, the collection is available, but it's cut off. 4 is stranded. It's one of those games that's cut off, and it unless we get a remake or a remaster or some miracle of PlayStation backward compatibility, it's always going to be trapped on the PS3. And I think that sucks.
That is an absolute tragedy. I've seen a lot of people complaining about Metal Gear recently because, with I think a lot of it is Death Stranding's in the conversation again. Kojima games are in the conversation again, and people want to revisit those. And it sucks when you have, one part of this saga tied to something obscure. Nobody wants to hook up their PS3 in this day and age. Like, what? So I hope there is a solution. It seems like PlayStation Now will be the solution for a lot of those games. But yeah, that is a bummer. I'm in the same camp. Fatal Frame 2. Shout out to Mr. Joanna Dark for mentioning that, because that is one of the greatest horror games ever made. Not backwards compatible anywhere. So every once in a while, around Halloween, around this time, I'll bust out my OG Xbox and I'll play some Fatal Frame 2. All right,
Nice.
Next topic here that I want to talk about is Halo Infinite. And some exciting news for people who want to get their hands on it. So, the same day as the PlayStation Showcase, Halo announced that new flighting begins on September 24th. And this flight will feature Big Team Battle and Arena PvP. They have also stressed that pretty much anyone who is registered for the flight by the 13th will get an invite to this one. So they are opening up the scale and scope of this one in a huge way. So it won't be one of those situations where, you get in, but your friends don't. Everyone who signs up and is fully checked is supposed to get an invite. So Sam, where you at? We talked about this a little bit before the show. Big team battles. How you feeling about that?
Okay. Anyone who knows me and knows my history with Halo, I respect Arena. I enjoy Arena. I would dare say I love Arena. I'll spend a lot of time there. I really enjoyed that first test where we were mopping up the bots and until we were briefly unprepared, and then the ODST bots mopped us, but then we had to readjust, and it was a good time. It was a good time. But man, big team battle. That's where it's at. That is big team battle is Halo. Halo is that trifecta of having your melee and your grenades at the same time. You don't have to swap to them with your two weapons, and you're constantly cycling weapons because you don't have a lot of ammo. But then you got the vehicles as well. That's what Halo is. Halo to me is going on some horrific rampage in a flaming warthog, desperately trying to get back to base with the flag you've captured, or running around, someone stealing the oddball across in a big team setting, or assault, de-arming a bomb, or trying to sneak into the enemy base. The amount of time I've spent on coagulation, Valhalla, all the classic, the GOAT big team battle maps. Needless to say, I'm excited. This flight is where I think it's going to be at. This is the one where I'm like, okay, I better be in here. Come on. we got, let's make sure it happens.
I'm the same way. For me, like, what has always been special about Halo is the big team battle. Again, harkening back to my roots when we would get 16 stinky dudes in somebody's basement, and we'd hook up 4 Xboxes and we would do big team battles in someone's basement, with their mom making Totino's pizza rolls. Like, that is, like, for me, nostalgic, but also a big part of why Halo multiplayer specifically has always been so special. I love the vehicles. Like, nobody does vehicles, in my opinion, better than Halo does. It's got such a unique, cool suite of vehicles. The vehicles add an interesting dynamic to the battles. I've been playing Master Chief Collection and Halo 5 a lot recently, and just like re-experiencing some of these iconic maps in big team battles. You got your buddies in the Warthog, you're driving around, going to steal the flag, somebody hits you with a rocket launcher, you do 6 barrel rolls, land on your feet, keep going, your buddy jumps out. There's just so much energy and excitement with big team battles. And I think, you know, with what we've seen of the Halo Infinite multiplayer so far and the way they've kind of reinvigorated Arena, I'm fully expecting them to reinvigorate big team battles in the same way. And I just, the grapple jack, Sam, the grapple jack.
It was already a genius addition, right? Just in Arena, getting to play around with it on a couple of those maps, it was such a brilliant design. You know, ever since I saw a grappling hook in Halo, even back in 2020, in the rougher footage that we saw, I was like, yes, this is perfect. This is what the sandbox needs. That thing is going to be wicked with vehicles. Grappling onto Banshees, grappling onto Warthogs, stealing flags, stealing them back. Can you grapple the flag and pull it to you? I don't know. We're going to find out. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it.
Imagine this scenario. Enemies have infiltrated your base. They have thrown the flag on the back of their Warthog. They are driving away. You come out of nowhere with the grappling hook. You pull the flag off the back of their Warthog. Like, is that going to be the sandbox we can live?
I hope.
I hope.
Really, really hope.
We can hope, we can dream, but soon, very soon, September 24th, we'll be able to get our hands on it. And I'm ready, dude.
Make sure you go register. If you haven't registered already, there is still time. Go do that right now if you want to get in.
Yes, make sure all your boxes are green. You don't have to opt into both console and PC, but you do have to opt into the emails. I know some people didn't do that, don't want to do that, but if you want an invite, they have said that you have to have all of those boxes green. So I had friends who didn't do that the first time around and they did not get an invite because they didn't opt into communications. So you might get some Halo spam emails, but you get to play Halo, so it's a trade-off. We talked about this a little bit before the show as well, but you didn't get a chance to try the Arena PvP at all, correct? With the last fight?
No. That tiny window was I wasn't available when it opened up. I was like, come on, please, but timing didn't work out. So I am looking forward to seeing Arena versus actual players as well this time around.
Yeah. I was out with my wife when they dropped the tweet that, hey, we're doing 2 hours of Halo Infinite PvP, and I was like, oh damn. So I got home, I caught the tail end. I was able to queue for 1 match of Arena PvP, and it was hard because it wasn't even a full match. Like, I loaded into a match partway through and my team was just getting destroyed. So it wasn't the best gauge of PvP, but I at least got, a good 2.5 minutes to see what it was. But I am looking forward to seeing how that compares, because playing with the bots was cool. I enjoyed it. It gave us a good idea of how the game feels, and the game feels amazing. But the bots are bots. So at a certain point, even the most difficult bots, we were winning 50-15. So it wasn't that challenging. So as good as the bots are, give me that human dynamic, and hopefully it'll be less teabagging than my recent experiences with Master Chief Collection, because it's people who play Halo still on that level are a certain breed, that's for sure.
That's the problem, right? It's like, and I love it, but it would be like going back to the original, the OG Titanfall. It's great, but the problem is the people who are still playing that have been playing it, and you haven't. So
you feel it. Some matches you're like, yeah, I'm doing good. I went 20 and 15. I'm feeling good. And then the next match, you go against the guys who have. I played a match of Capture the Flag, and 2 people on their team were absolutely wrecking every single one of us in our squad. We were playing with 5 people, and one of them went 75-3, and the other one went 55-1. Like, these dudes were ridiculous Halo gods, and it sucked to play against them. Okay, so yes, Halo Infinite's coming. We get to play it again. Let's get some more positive momentum. I know people have, been complaining that myself and Windows Central's been mean or harsh to Halo, but I think, again, once we get to play it, that'll kind of subside a little bit. I'm gonna get to a couple super chats here. First up, Harjeet Chani says, "Can we now put to rest that indie should be an Xbox exclusive? KOTOR is a launch PS5 exclusive, Wolverine a full exclusive, both from Disney." So we're going to be talking about Knights of the Old Republic for sure. We're going to be talking about the superhero stuff more in depth, but let's touch on the Indiana Jones stuff. Shortly after the Bethesda acquisition, Bethesda teased that they are making an Indiana Jones game. And as with everything now from the Bethesda camp, the conversations were immediately, will this be an exclusive? Will this be an Xbox exclusive? So Sam, as it stands right now, what we've seen from Xbox and Bethesda, will Indiana Jones be a full Xbox exclusive in your eyes?
In my eyes, it's tough. I think it's very tough. I think it depends on a lot of information that we don't have. But you're basically putting a gun to my head here.
Gun to your head. Is an exclusive.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. But I'm flipping a coin here. I'm taking the gamble that it is so early on that platforms weren't decided. But I would caution people, don't take that to the bank. It is entirely possible there was something in place where Disney said, okay, if we give you this, you're going to put it on this platform, this platform, this platform. That might have been in the contract. It might not. I'm not Todd Howard. You're not Todd Howard. You're not the head of Machine Games. I'm not the head of Machine Games. So we don't know what that looks like. But I think there is a good, solid chance it's Xbox exclusive. We know that Disney is not opposed to having platform exclusives. They are not opposed to that at all. They're selling the guns for the war, so to speak, right now. They're just handing out the arms and arsenals.
It's Disney. I will give them credit because they have been doing a pretty good job of finding the right teams for these projects, and they are, kind of past the days of just giving these games to anyone, giving those licenses to anyone who wants them. I'm talking to like Joe Neate and Mike Chapman about the process for, getting Pirates of the Caribbean in Sea of Thieves. Is basically, the Sea of Thieves team had this idea. They went to Disney and talked about it. And then Disney was like, yeah, let's do it. This sounds amazing. I love this. They weren't, trying to force any sort of multi-platform stuff or anything at all. They loved the idea. They loved the team behind it. And that's how these projects get made. We look at Insomniac. Insomniac killed it with Spider-Man 1. Disney now and that creative team, the Marvel team, trusts Insomniac. And that's why we have Spider-Man 2. And that's why we have Wolverine, because they have proven that they can deliver a successful Marvel game. And Marvel's like, if you guys can do it, I don't really care that you're attached to Sony. We trust you and we want to see what you can do. So I think, when it comes to exclusives, there's no such thing with Marvel and Disney right now as this IP is too big to be an exclusive.
Right, exactly.
Disney does not care about that. Disney right now cares about making games that are good. And if that team is exclusive, if that team is owned by PlayStation or Microsoft, then it will likely be an exclusive. So I will say that I also think Indiana Jones will be an exclusive. The only way that it wouldn't be is if contracts were already signed, if paperwork was already done saying that this will be a multi-platform game, because Xbox has stressed that they are carrying out whatever contracts were already signed with Bethesda. We don't know what what that looks like. And Indiana Jones might be one of those situations where it was already a done deal, and they have said that we are going to make Indiana Jones for XYZ platforms. If that wasn't the case, then it will be an exclusive. But Xbox has told us pretty much blatantly that they're not buying out those contracts as much as people want to see Xbox just kind of flex and buy out Indiana Jones as a counterattack to Wolverine. Xbox has told you that they're not going to do that. So that's where I'm at. Chat, let us know what you think there. I'm curious because I've seen some hot takes regarding all of that, and basically I've seen that exact wording is that Xbox has to make Indiana Jones an exclusive now as a counterattack to these exclusives. But we're going to be talking a lot more about what Xbox needs to do here soon. Silver Fox with the super chat. Again, appreciate all the super chats. You guys are killing it. I would like to see Microsoft be more open about what licenses they still have HD, and what are the future plans for those franchises? Brute Force, Conquer, etc.
Well, I'll just interject and say brute force is never coming back because the man up top, the big boss himself, hates that game, and you will never. As much as I like to joke about it, like I will happily joke about it if I ever get to talk to Phil, but you're not going to see a new brute force. I'm sorry, we got to cut that one off right at the knees. It's I think that is like the one exception to creative freedom, right? You know, he told Matt Booty, he's told all the people running Bethesda, you have creative freedom, make the games you want. There's like tiny font at the bottom of that says, unless it's brute force, I will shut that crap down
If you pitch
immediately.
me brute force, we're done here. Conversation's over. Yeah, so Xbox has been kind of subtly teasing their interest in revisiting current franchises. The thing that people need to realize or kind of accept is that it ultimately comes down to what the teams want to do. Xbox is not going to go to a team and say, "Hey, you're making Conquer now. Hey, you're making Brute Force now." Whatever the game is, it needs to be a team within Xbox saying, "We understand you own this IP. We have an idea for how to bring it back, and we want to revisit that." People want Banjo. People have been asking, where the hell is Banjo? Why don't we have Banjo? We've seen Psychonauts come out and crush as a platformer. We've seen Ratchet and Clank come out and crush as a platformer. So the idea that you can't make a good platformer in this day and age is dead. Some of the game of the year contenders, most of the game of the year contenders actually this
Right.
year are platformers. So there's no better time to bring back Conquer, but Rare is not touching it. Double
Mhm.
Fine is not touching it. Both of those teams have said that we are working on other things. We're not doing it.
And Miles, this is a great point you're making here. I love it, and this is going to tie in. Like, so just wrap a red thread around it on the conspiracy wall and pull it forward because this is going to apply to something we're going to talk about later in terms of what Xbox needs to do. But you hit the nail on the head. Part of creative freedom means they're not telling these studios what to do. The desire has to be there. You know, a perfect example of an IP that I think people kind of have forgotten is coming back, and it is a big deal. The Initiative. Perfect Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl Gallagher, former head of Crystal Dynamics, you know, he's brought a lot of his old work buddies from Crystal Dynamics and Sony Santa Monica over to work at the Initiative. But when they were first having those talks in 2018, you know, Phil and Matt Booty have been very open about how it wasn't hinging, you know, him being hired and founding the Initiative wasn't hinging on, oh, you got to use one of our old IPs, but it was because he came to them and said, look, I love Perfect Dark. I love Joanna Dark. Can we do something with this? Do we have an idea? You know, he was very heavily involved in those discussions. IPs can come back. We're going to get that game. We're going to get a reinvention of Perfect Dark, but that's not going to be the case for every single studio.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them want to do new things. A lot of them want to do new IPs. A lot of them want to make sequels to games they're already making right now. Some are going to do both. And in the future, maybe one of them will go back and revisit more IPs. But creative freedom is a double-edged sword, and people need to respect that. That's what I'll say on that.
Yeah, I'm all for, these creatives doing what they want to do. And sometimes they don't see value or they don't see anything interesting in going back to an existing IP and trying to you kind of retread old ground. That being said, Phil Spencer, where's Phantom Dust, dude? You promised
Here
me
we go.
Phantom Dust.
Here he is.
You promised me Phantom Dust. You took it away. You canceled the project. We had a team passionate. That team was passionate about Phantom Dust. That team originally was hired on to do basically a multiplayer only kind of spin-off of Phantom Dust or a reboot that's multiplayer only. They took some of those resources, allegedly. This is all hearsay. I don't know that this is 100% true. But what I've heard is that they wanted to make a campaign and they had a multiplayer demo ready, and then they allocated some of those resources to having a campaign demo saying, hey, let's do this right. Let's do Phantom Dust right. Let's do both multiplayer and campaign. Xbox saw that they were doing a campaign and said, that's not what we want. Peace. Goodbye. Good luck. Godspeed. That's old Xbox. That is old Xbox mentality. That is when Xbox was very tight with resources, very tight with everything about their business. So it sucks that Phantom Dust had a chance during a time when Xbox didn't really want to give games a chance. So yes, I get it. I want Phil Spencer to come down and say, hey, hey, Coalition, you have to make the new Phantom Dust. I would love that, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think it would be fair to those teams if that's how Xbox worked as their hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. I get where the frustrations come from. We all have those obscure franchises that we love and want to see come back in one way, shape, or form. We have the idea in our head of what it could be, how it could fit in the modern space. But then it comes down to budget, it comes down to resources, it comes down to the team, and that's when it gets complicated.
Yep.
Super chat from Yodani, who says, the pizza rolls burning your mouth is why we are better equipped for online trash talk than the new generation. Hashtag facts. So we were just grizzled and hardened by just scorching hot pizza rolls, and that's why we can go on Twitter and just take those beatings day after day.
Pizza rolls. Never knew that's what it was. The secret pizza roll buff. Huh.
It's all it's coming together. It's all starting to make sense.
It's fitting in place.
All right, Sam, it's acquisition season, and Xbox, they did it, Sam. They slapped down their first big acquisition in a while. And if you guys haven't heard, it's Clipchamp. And some of you are like, who's Clipchamp? What games have they developed? And they have developed no games. This is actually a cloud-based, web-based video editing company that Microsoft has under their umbrella. And some people wrote this off as, okay, whatever, I don't really care. This isn't what I necessarily want. But Sam, do you see any interesting possibilities, or I'll set this up for you here, any areas of opportunity that this Clipchamp acquisition can correct for Xbox?
I love how you say set it up as in you're posing a question, but in reality, we're on the same page. You and I both know you're holding the ball up right there in front of my face saying, hit it.
Hit it. Do it.
But I'll take the bait and I'll hit it because I agree with you. As our own editor, Jez Corden, pointed out when he wrote this up on Windows Central, y'all, let's call a spade a spade. Xbox share capacity and clip editing and sharing screenshots, it sucks. It's not good. It's a disaster. The best case scenario is that maybe it'll work and you don't have to reset your console. Miles, I know you haven't been that lucky.
No, everyone knows I'm fair, I'm nuanced. I don't say inflammatory things for the sake of being inflammatory, but I am not exaggerating at all when I tell you I have to reset my Xbox, hard reset, every single time I want to trim a clip or even upload a clip to the cloud. And it is awful. It is so frustrating to try to get this simple 30-second clip up, and that takes me a full reset. Granted, it's fast to reset the Series X now, but compared to even my Switch, even the most basic hardware that exists between the big three, it is easier, more streamlined, and more efficient to upload a clip from my Switch than the Xbox. And that, for me, is a big problem.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't have anywhere near the problems you do. I will say that. I can generally edit a clip and I don't have to reset my console, but maybe the clip doesn't take in the first place. Maybe I try to record it 3 times in a row and it just doesn't work. Or maybe it only records 4 seconds, even though there's plenty of space free. But that's another thing. I shouldn't have to be deleting clips in order to make space, because I know 4K captures take up more room, 4K HDR captures, but there is not a lot of space there. There is not a lot of space at all. You are constantly cycling through. I don't want to constantly be shunting it over to OneDrive to make it work. Let me store as much stuff as I can. And while we're on this topic, by the way, let me just plug in a USB stick and port it over to that. Come on. I'm not the one working on it. I get it. It's custom operating system. You have all this different software going on. I get it. It can't be that difficult. It can't be. This has to be something that if you have the resources and the people on it, you can fix it up. Hopefully, acquiring Clipchamp is a step in that direction. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, Jason Ronald has come out and addressed it, because it's been a common complaint. It's something I've complained about since the launch of the Series X, and it's gotten slightly better. The DVR or the HDR is not completely broken to the fact where clips are just black when you record. So they're making steps. but it's really frustrating that something, for us on the outside that is so simple is not very intuitive. And I love the integration with the app, and it works amazingly for screenshots, like having auto upload on. I take a screenshot, it's uploaded to my phone automatically without me thinking of it,
Mhm.
and then I just go on Twitter and share that. And so I love that. And I love that idea for clips as well, like having it automatically upload. And I have friends who've had success. They have auto upload set for their clips, it automatically uploads, they download it, they post it to Twitter. It has not been working consistently for me, and it has not been working consistently for a lot of people. So there is a fix coming. And I just hope it's what people want, because again, I could go on. I don't like the limits to the clip length. Again, if we want to talk about how PlayStation's doing it, PlayStation doesn't have the same extreme limits for their DVR recordings. So there's a lot of areas of opportunity, let's say, as a constructive way to wrap this conversation up with Xbox Game DVR, with Xbox sharing and editing. There's no Upload Studio just got left to die. There's been no substitute for that when it comes to like editing or splicing anything together from your console. So Clipchamp, I want to believe, is them saying, all right, we got to take this more seriously, and we got to give Xbox players a way to do this.
Amen.
Amen. A couple more super chats here. Faisal007 says, Indiana is made by Xbox, not like Knights of the Old Republic, so the chance for it to be exclusive is high. I think Xbox needs to make hit games. Again, we're going to touch on Knights of the Old Republic here very, very, very shortly, so I don't want to dive into that just yet. But this point about, I think Xbox needs to make hit games, I don't think that's controversial. I don't think there's any controversy there. I don't think anyone's disagreeing that Xbox needs to make hit games. What is your I guess I'll turn this into a question to you, Sam. Where are you sitting at with Xbox's current output in terms of quality, in terms of consistency? Are you feeling much better about the future of Xbox Game Studios than you were, let's say, 5 years ago?
5 years ago, if I wasn't feeling better, there would be a problem. There would be an issue here. I'll say even 2 years ago, even 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, Miles, you remember, I wasn't working professionally then, but I did get a chance to go to E3 2018. And let's be real, going into E3 2018, the stakes were dire. There was a very general mood around the community at the time that it was put up or shut up. It was do or die. Something had to change. We're at the end of our rope here. Phil delivered, legendary showcase, obviously, all the great games they had, 5 additions to Xbox Game Studios. I think it was Microsoft Studios at the time, but it's the XGS umbrella. One of them being founded up from the ground up, and then 4 acquisitions, and then they've just continued steamrolling ever since. I feel a lot better. I like Xbox's output right now. I don't think, I've said this before, I don't think they get credit for how many games they put out just last year in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Ori and the Will of the Wisp, I don't care what some people say, that was a Game of the Year contender. That was my personal Game of the Year. That was a magnificent title. Gears Tactics, excellent, underrated, taking the Gears formula but doing something new with it. Great game. I know it took a little while to come to Xbox, but it is on Xbox. It is on Xbox and PC now. That's when the PC version of Flight Simulator came out. There was so much other stuff. They did a great job. They're doing a better job. I know the first half of this year was kind of rough. COVID is affecting the entire industry. It's this permanent wrinkle we're going to have to deal with. I think COVID and the pandemic pushed a lot of their games further off than I would have liked. But that's reality. We kind of have to brace with that. When I look at the Xbox and Bethesda, or it's all Xbox. When I look at the Xbox roadmap, I'm very happy. I see a ton of big Western RPGs. Starfield next year. The next big game, proper. The next single player adventure from Bethesda Game Studios. I look at Redfall and the creativity of Arcane. I look at the stuff like Psychonauts 2. I just played Psychonauts 2. I just maxed it out, got every achievement. Brilliant game. I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm very happy with the direction Xbox is in, but I do think it is fair that shout out to our friend, he's been on here before, Lord Cognito. I think when people say they need a hit game, they're looking for the just one movement.
Yes.
Is that what it is? Just one? I am in
just
agreement
one.
with him. I am in agreement with hashtag just one. It doesn't mean you need to do everything. I don't want you copying every single thing. I don't want you looking over Sony's shoulder going, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. That's good. But you can do one. You can you can address that. You can give the people who like that kind of game one. And I think when they delivered that, I've run out of things to complain about.
Yeah, Xbox has done an excellent job fixing its game problem, fixing its studio problem. A lot of people, love the Xbox ecosystem for its online infrastructure and all the kind of niceties that come with that. And I don't think there's ever really been a question there as soon as Xbox 360 hit with that, but there have been legit criticisms when it comes to their first party output. And we can have debates on the importance of first party versus third party, because some people make the argument that third party games are bigger, they sell more, and more people play them than any first party games, and that's true in a lot of cases. But we are in a battle of platforms in a way that we've never been before. And as much as people don't want to use the comparison, they are looking at your Netflixes, they are looking at your HBO Maxes, they are looking at your Hulus, and they are seeing that, to get people to buy into what you're doing, you have to have exclusive. You have to have hits. You got to have your Orange is the New Black. You got to have your Tiger King that everyone is watching, everyone is playing in this case, and everyone is talking about. If you want people to accept what you're doing, get excited about what you're doing, and build up that reputation of no matter what you put out, somebody's going to be excited about it. And that's the road Xbox is on, and they are working incredibly hard with these teams to make sure that that is what their future looks like. So shout out to Jez, who says that Xbox is not Netflix, not trying to copy Netflix, because I strongly disagree.
Inspired by. Let's say inspired.
Inspired. Yes. Quick shout out to the 200 people rocking with us. If you guys are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. We got a lot of amazing topics to cover. I'm going to get to one more super chat, and then we're going to transition into Knights of the Old Republic, the remake coming back. Harjeet Chani asks, do you see a lot of PS5 only games not releasing on PS4 before the PS5 Pro comes out? It doesn't look like it. Oh God. Okay. PS5 Pro. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second.
Can I jump in on this? I don't want to cut you off if you got something good to say, but people can't get their hands on a PS5. People can barely get their hands on a Series X. The Series S is just now like really readily available. You can get that fairly reliably, but like the two big boys, it's tough. It's tough out here. I know people. I have a coworker, Brendan, who still can't get a Series X. He's trying. He's trying. I have friends trying to get PS5s. They can't. I'm trying to get a new graphics card for my desktop computer. I can't. I've been entering every Newegg shuffle. Just it's not happening. I've been hitting every Best Buy restock. Simmer down with the Pro Talks. Simmer. I need everyone to take a collective chill pill, because this is going to be, I'm serious, y'all. This is going to be the longest generation yet. The chip shortages are not getting better. It's looking like it's going to be mid-2023 before things stabilize. That's if several things improve. That's contingent on a lot of ifs that are not guaranteed. It's going to be a while. I do think we're going to get mid-gen refreshes, but I think a mid-gen refresh for this generation is a lot further out than a mid-gen refresh was last time around.
Yeah, I think the stock shortages are the biggest impact to this. I think originally the plan with Xbox specifically, if we look at their all access model and how that was mirroring basically like a cell phone upgrade plan, they were softly, in my opinion, preparing customers for more iterations. Naming these consoles a Series X and a Series S was incredibly intentional, incredibly deliberate, because they are 100% planning on iterating on the series, the different series. Now, will we get the Series Mobile, the Series Handheld? I hope so, and I would love to see them iterate on that. But in regards to the pros, those, in my opinion, do not come before 2024. at the earliest, if there's
Hmm.
any talks of that. I saw the leak going around that 2022 or 2023 they're targeting, and that I don't think is in any reality. And even if they were talking about that originally at some point in time, they're looking at availability, looking at resources, and saying, "Nah, we got to push that out." Like people, like you said, people
Hmm.
still cannot get these consoles consistently. So because of that, we are going to be in a situation like you mentioned, where the length of this console cycle is probably going to be a little bit longer than they were intending. Maybe not the longest ever, but longer than they were anticipating by a lot. So I guess I'm just grateful that both of these consoles came out and were actually big jumps in terms of hardware, and it wasn't
Big
like
time.
the base Xbox One and base PS4 where they came out of the gate kind of weak. So at least there's that. As much as I want to, spend $700 on the PS5 Pro, I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon.
Yep.
All right, we got to talk about it. People in the chat clearly want to talk about this. People in the chat clearly have some feelings on it, and that is Knights of the Old Republic. So I'll set the scene here. People have been asking about Knights of the Old Republic, a remake, a reboot for a long time. There's been rumors and rumblings that a remake was in development from Aspire Entertainment. A lot of Xbox fans have nostalgia, like you. This was one of the first Xbox games you ever played, Knights of the Old Republic. People love Knights of the Old Republic. As part of the PlayStation Showcase, Knights of the Old Republic was revealed, and then following the brief kind of CG trailer, there was a presented by PlayStation Studios logo at the end of this, and that caught me off guard. Because obviously they wanted you to think that this was a full PlayStation exclusive, because they show you presented by PlayStation Studios. So PlayStation Studios is involved in publishing this. And I was like, whoa, did they really lock down exclusivity for Knights of the Old Republic, a beloved Xbox franchise? We've gotten some clarity since, and it is confirmed as a timed PlayStation exclusive. So it'll be launching on PC as well. So if you have a
Mhm.
capable PC, you can still play it at launch. But in terms of the console space, it's only on PlayStation, Sam. And so I'm going to take a backseat to you. I'm going to take a backseat to the chat on this one, because I don't have a ton of fondness for Knights of the Old Republic. I played it briefly when I was younger, but I didn't really fall in love with it. I didn't play it a ton. So it's been interesting for me to watch these conversations happen, because I've been in situations where something you're passionate about skips your preferred
Mhm.
platform. But in this case, I'm just kind of on the outside. So, as someone who has a fond memory of Knights of the Old Republic, were you bummed? Were you bummed at all by the exclusivity here?
Yeah. So surprised? Yes. I was very surprised. I was completely taken aback when it said, presented by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Like, I could not believe that. I was like, huh? Pardon me? Did
What?
someone slip in the wrong slide here? What's going on? Uh, and then you find out, obviously, in post-show interviews that they're helping to fund the project. So I'm guessing they're publishing the PS5 version, and
Yeah.
pouring money into the project allows them to do that, allows them to get that timed console exclusivity. Probably, based on their other deals they've made for games like Final Fantasy 16, Deathloop, etc. A year or two, something like that. It's going to be somewhere in there.
Mhm.
But bummed? No. I am not bummed because I wanted this game. This was my dream game. This was the game that my brothers and I would joke to each other would never happen. We all loved that game. It was not only one of the first original Xbox games I played, it was the first role-playing game I ever played. I ever touched. And so I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the characters. Yes, it is super, super janky by today's standards. Like, oh my god, it's rough to play, but I've still played it through so many times. I've played through the mobile version so many times. I played through on Xbox backward compatibility. I'm just happy this project is happening. And I'm happy that it's getting the budget it deserves. This isn't a simple, oh, it's still that combat y'all are familiar with, but hey, we brushed up the graphics, we cleaned up the audio. Like, no, they're promising this is a remake. Now, to me, Miles, that sounds like Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's the kind of idea I get in my head where we are completely changing the combat systems. We are overhauling everything about it, but it's still the nostalgic locations. It's still those classic characters like the Jedi Bastilla Shan, who is voiced by Jennifer Hale, is returning, absolute queen. So that's fantastic to hear. It's Darth Revan, it's Darth Malak, it's Karth, HK-47, everyone's favorite murder bot. I'm just happy to see them all again. I know this game is not going to be here for a while, and I do want to say I understand Xbox fans if they are feeling bummed, because I always assumed if this was going to happen, Xbox was going to help fund it, right?
Yep.
This was a game that very quietly helped launch the original Xbox. It was a big deal that this game, and there were actually a lot of other Star Wars games for that matter. The sequel to this, The Sith Lords by Obsidian, Republic Commando, by LucasArts. There were a lot of good games like that that were console exclusive to the original Xbox. But at the end of the day, Sony was willing to pay more money. That's what it comes down to. For whatever reason, we can't know. We don't know the spreadsheets. Xbox, if they saw it, because there's no way they didn't see it, right? They weren't blindsided by this. If there were negotiations about this kind of game happening, Xbox would have been in on them. But they looked at it. They probably looked at how many big RPGs they have in their own stable, and they said, you know what? We're not willing to outbid Sony on this one. I understand if you're a little bummed, but take comfort in the fact that one, it is still coming to PC at launch, and two, you're going to get to play it eventually. It's not a permanent exclusive. You just hang in there. That's again, long-winded, but that's where I'm at with this whole thing.
Yeah, again, for me, it's been very interesting because I understand people who are upset, and like you mentioned, this was for the original Xbox, one of the big exclusives that put them on the map. You look at the console slate for the original Xbox. You had Halo, you had Knights of the Old Republic, you had Morrowind, but Morrowind and Knights of the Old Republic made people. And I guess Fable too. We had Fable, we had Morrowind, we had Knights of the Republic. People looked at the original Xbox and said, Xbox is an amazing place to play Western RPGs. Like, they are having big exclusives. I'm excited. I like this style. I want to play here. So I think for a lot of longtime Xbox fans, this probably stings a bit more. And like you mentioned, it would be interesting to see kind of what the behind the scenes conversations look like. Because I agree. I don't imagine Xbox had no idea. I don't imagine PlayStation came out of nowhere and swooped this up out from underneath them. I imagine Aspire probably came to Xbox first in an ideal world and said, hey, we want to do this. Like, this is the scope. This is the scale. We really want to do this thing. We don't have the budget ourselves to do this. Would you be interested in helping us bring this to life? Again, we don't know that that's the reality, but I can't imagine those conversations didn't happen. I can't. So I've seen a lot of people frustrated, upset, have basically felt betrayed by Phil Spencer and Xbox that they would let PlayStation have this one. And I do get it on one hand. Because when I first heard about this remake and saw that it was by Aspire, I thought it was going to be like your Stubbs the Zombie. Like, not a remake at all, but a remaster that it works. It looks a little bit better. It has achievements. There you go. Knights of the Old Republic. It's back, baby. That's what I was expecting. So the fact that this is getting a full-fledged remake, it makes me more excited because I'll actually be able to dive in and experience it in a fresh way as someone who didn't play the original growing up. I will touch on the whole, I don't like the narrative that, oh, just buy a PlayStation 5 or buy a high-end PC if you want to play this. Because for some people, that's just not a reality. I totally get that if you can't afford all the consoles and you only have one and Xbox is the one that you have, that sucks. And I totally get that. That being said, I guess we can take some solace in the fact that it is coming to Xbox eventually, but it does suck for some people, for sure.
Yeah, it's understandable. It's just, I would just ask everyone to keep it in context. I get being bummed, but consider everything else. And let's call a spade a spade. It's not like there's a shortage of Western role-playing games coming up on Xbox, and it's not like there's a deluge on PS5. So
yeah,
just,
like
if you're that as well here.
If you're in the hardcore PlayStation camp and you're seeing Bethesda leave, You're seeing Obsidian leave. You're seeing all these amazing, iconic Western developers become Xbox exclusives, and you're like last remaining hope right now is BioWare, and their kind of future is up in the air. You're hoping and you're praying for something like a Knights of the Old Republic exclusive. So for some of those people, yeah, like PlayStation, I think this shows that PlayStation understands that they have to be aggressive when it comes to competing with Western RPGs. PlayStation has blatantly catered to the West with their releases. And when they've done that and then they lose arguably a huge sector of the market with Western RPGs, they got to do something. And it sucks, and it's also business. And I've talked about this before, but with this war of platforms, I think the big exclusive games are only going to become more prevalent. And I think PlayStation in particular is only going to shell out more and more money to make sure that they have those exclusives.
Yep.
I'm not saying that that's the right move. I'm not saying that that's a move I love. I'm just telling people that if this bums you out, then you are going to be bummed by future announcements. And
brace for impact. This is going to be a content war. Content is king, and both of them are still buying. You know, we know Microsoft is looking. They've said as much. They've been a little quiet lately, but they have said as much. They're not done. PlayStation is bringing in Firesprite, Nix's, Housemarque over the last year, making these deals. And I guarantee you, Miles, you're absolutely right. This is not the last big deal they're going to make. There's going to be others. It's going to happen. People need to embrace the future.
It's, again, I get it. It's frustrating. I've never been the biggest fan of hardcore console exclusives, but we are in this war of platforms, and there's going to be some exclusive casualties for certain sides, because the reality is they want you invested, and they are going to do whatever they can to let you know that if you want to play this game, if you want to play more great games, they're only going to be available here. And sorry, it is what it is. We're not going to change our approach, because I think for a lot of people who are really excited about Knights of the Old Republic, they are going to buy a PS5 if they don't have one, and they are going to play it. And that's PlayStation's business model. They, more than anything else, they want you to buy a PlayStation 5, and they're going to do whatever it takes, because I talked about this with Paris recently. That's how they're showing their investors that they're doing well. That's why they scream those console sales from the rooftop every chance they get, because that is their business model. We are selling PS5s. We are making games that are going to sell PS5s, and here's how we're doing it.
Right.
So it sucks. I get it. And as someone who, was bummed by the Halo Infinite co-op delay, I don't like when people say just wait. Obviously, we all want to play it at the same time, so I get it. But I'm on the outside on this one, and I just get to sit back and say, well, I guess I'm grateful I'm not a huge Knights of the Old Republic fan. Super chat from Eternal Umbra says, yo, Miles and Sam, imagine Xbox acquires Rocksteady, NetherRealm, and the DC license, and has Batman as an exclusive among other future titles from that license. You guys for or against this? We're definitely going to be talking more about the Marvel stuff here shortly. So we're gonna circle back to that, Eternal. I appreciate the super chat. We will touch on that, because we're gonna be having a long, passionate conversation about Xbox and superheroes. Super chatted from Lord Neater says, I use a USB pen drive and I play with HDR, but I chose to record 4K SDR because I'm not going to upload HDR video. Works great. Okay, yeah, I have heard that you can set in external drives and record to them if they are proprietary to only videos. You have to format them to record on. Harjeet Chani with another super chat says, I find the hits thing is hits in parentheses thing is perception. Sony developed and Xbox developed games aren't that far off in scores. Nintendo is the runaway success there, but we hear about Sony more than them. So the hits, I guess, yeah, let's talk about this briefly. So some people say that PlayStation has hits and Xbox does not. What's your stance on that ideology?
Hits. I think we need a thesaurus. We need Merriam-Webster to get in on this chat and define hits because everyone has a different definition of what hits even means.
Hmm.
So I'm going to take my opinion of what a hit means, and that is a game that is generally across most people, both casual and hardcore audiences that are louder on Twitter and social media, a game that is perceived favorably and sells or is engaged with well. Do you think that's a fair definition, Miles?
Yes, I think that is a very accurate definition of a hit. And I'm sure if we look behind the scenes at Xbox and PlayStation, they would have a very boring spreadsheet of what a hit is. This is a hit for us. This is the money we put in. We made more money than we put in. That's a hit. That's a banger, dude.
Exactly. So I think objectively, there was a time this was true. But I think that also has something to do with the fact that there was a time Microsoft just didn't give the Xbox division any budget, and they had 5 internal studios, which was those were rough days, man. Like I just gotta say, thank God we're out of there. It was not good back then. It was tough hanging in there.
Remember waiting 5 years for Crackdown 3?
Oh my God. Oh
And
God.
I liked Crackdown 3. Don't get me wrong, but
I don't hate Crackdown 3 either, but
I don't think that was considered a hit by anyone's definition.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But at the same time, I would caution people, be careful of the enthusiast bubble. You know, I see a lot of accusations or whatever, chatter about like Sony made games, so the Sony formula games are what people want more and they're what gets more attention in the press. And I think there is perhaps a kernel of truth in that, but I would also say be careful of conflating actual enthusiasm with just social media chatter. Forza Horizon 4 by Playground Games, critically acclaimed, 92 on Metacritic and OpenCritic. Last time I checked, came out in 2018. Over 24 million players. Over 24 million players. Massive runaway success for Playground. What a magnificent studio. What a magnificent team. I can't wait for Forza Horizon 5. And I'm just going to be frank. I'm just going to be frank about this, Miles. If you went by social media chatter, you'd think that a couple of games that have come out over the last couple of years, like Ratchet and Clank, were bigger hits than Forza Horizon 4. And I love Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I love it. I think it's a fantastic game. Insomniac is on fire. They're killing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you be careful of the social media bubble because it doesn't always one-to-one translate over into actual success of a hit.
Yeah, let's look at State of Decay 2 as an excellent example of a game that I would say hands down is a huge hit for Undead Labs. That game did not review well initially. That game did not get great review scores. I think it's like mid 60s. It was in that era where people were looking at Xbox exclusives and saying, "Oh, these are bad." That game is continuing to hit major milestones. They are continuing to add content to that game. They are excited about that game. That game, for them and for Xbox Game Pass, is a huge hit. Over 100 million people have downloaded State of Decay 2. Or wait, 10, is it 100 million?
You mean 10?
10,
I would
sorry.
say now if it's 100
10,
million,
sorry.
man, that's,
let me calm down here. 10.
Even Rockstar Games is going,
Sorry, yes, 10 million.
We're on our heels.
That sounded, when it came out of my mouth, it sounded a lot bigger. I was like, that doesn't sound right.
10 million. 10 million is huge. That's more players. I think I did the math when we were covering the recent showcase at Gamescom when they announced that. That's more players in the last year and a half than it was in that game's first year and a half after launch. They got to 10 million from 5 million faster than they got from launch to 5 million. That means increased momentum. That's big.
Yeah, so I agree with their overall sentiment that it is the term hits is based on your perception. And I think, again, the boring answer is a hit is probably determined by a spreadsheet and by investments and all these kind of boring metrics that we as players don't care about. We want the conflict. We want to go to Metacritic and say State of Decay 2 sucks. Last of Us 2 is an absolute masterpiece. Therefore, Xbox is trash. PlayStation is the GOAT. And that's how simple some people want it. That's not the reality. Especially if we want to be obnoxious, and if we want to be obnoxious kind of console warriors, the Nintendo stands should be the loudest and most obnoxious out there, because they can look at sales of Mario Kart 7 and be like, Last of Us 2, where you at? Why is Mario Kart selling more than God of War, Last of Us 2, Ratchet and Clank, and Spider-Man combined? Huh? What's up, PlayStation? Nintendo's the GOAT. Like, like if they wanted to be obnoxious, they could. So I also agree with your sentiment that we do need to look outside of the loud bubble that we surround ourselves in, because gaming is more accessible and more mainstream than it's ever been, and more people are playing games than they've ever played. And the reality is most of them are not on twitter.com.
Yep. And honestly, they're the smart ones.
I mean, I love Twitter, I get it, but also, like, everything has to be a fight sometimes. I said the PlayStation Showcase was very good. Not even like the most glowing like proclamation of this showcase. I said it was very good, and I had people up in arms that I said it was very good. I'm like, oh my god, really? Like, everything wasn't for me. Like, I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, and we'll transition to that in a second. Like, I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, so some of that stuff wasn't like, oh my god, this is changing my life. But I can still look at that and go, that's cool. People are going to be excited. That was a good showing. But I guess it's it's a slippery slope when you can't look at something objectively because it's not what you prefer. All right, Sam, let's talk about some superheroes, dude. Let's talk about. Here we go. People are passionate about this, and this has been a conversation for a long time in the space, basically ever since PlayStation announced Insomniac's Spider-Man as a PlayStation exclusive. This question has permeated the conversations on Twitter. So I'll pose this to you, and I'll pose this to the chat, and I will pose this in a very specific way with an emphasis on one specific word. Does Xbox need its own exclusive superhero?
No.
Sam?
A lot of people no.
Take it back. Yeah, take it back.
I'm about to be public enemy number one. I get it. But the way you phrase it, they don't need it. They need it, but they don't need it.
So
it would be.
Are you saying that?
Go ahead.
Are you saying that Xbox will not go bankrupt if they don't have an Xbox exclusive superhero? Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's not a requirement. There's no checklist that says must get Spidey competitor, must fund Spoderman game. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, and they don't need it. But they need it. It would be nice. It would be cool. It would be great to see. We talked about this earlier. Disney is clearly funding the arms race. They don't care who they're selling the bombs to. They don't care who they're handing out the guns to. They're just like, yeah, come on, pile them up.
Oh, you're going to give us this much and make it? Okay, yeah, sure.
Let's have this happen. But it also comes back to what we talked about before with Xbox. And I think I want to talk about Insomniac as well here, because it's creativity and passion. Those have to be there. You can't just walk up to, as much as I would love to see it, as much as I would love in my heart to see the Coalition tackle a Captain America game where you go through the years as Captain America, fighting in World War II, you're bashing in Nazi skulls, you're going after the Red Skull, you get frozen in ice, you're fighting aliens, you're working with the Avengers, secret thriller stuff, pull from Winter Soldier. A Captain America game by the Coalition could be so cool. But if they don't want to make it, it would not be a good idea.
Yeah.
We've seen what happens when a team is either A, not creatively, prepared to embrace the passion of a project, or B, like with Marvel's Avengers, when there's meddling from the publisher of like, oh, you've got this cool single player game about Marvel superheroes, the Avengers, one of the biggest IPs of all time right now. What was it? The top grossing movie of all time until that Avatar re-release overtook it for a brief minute there. That should have been one of the biggest games ever. That should have been massive.
Yeah.
Why was it not? Because no one wanted the tacked on Destiny nonsense. Like that, keep that in Destiny. That doesn't belong here. I don't want to equip Thor with nanites.
I don't want to replace the spine of the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, what are we doing here? And that's just one example, but I mean it. Insomniac has, well, number one, their production is incredible. Like, they're churning out games not at an incredible rate. They're just running rings around everyone else. It's amazing. They have great producers over there. But number two, and more importantly, they have the creativity and passion. They went to Marvel with this. I know there's conspiracy theories out there, but y'all, this is on the record. They went to Marvel and said, "Hey, we want to do Spider-Man." And that had blossomed, and that worked, and they took to it. They took a lot of the lessons they've learned from their gadget games with Ratchet and Clank, movement and traversal with Sunset Overdrive. They applied that. It worked, and they wanted to. You can see the love for Spider-Man in those games. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, but I am a big Marvel fan. I think a bit more than you, Miles. And, I could tell the love they put into that game. Then Wolverine came up in talks. Now they're doing Wolverine, and that's going to happen. The passion has to be there. If a team at Xbox wants to take on a superhero game, they should do it. By all means, do not hold them back. Let them go for it. But don't go to Phil and Matt Booty don't need to go to Disney and say, "Hey, give us Black Panther. We're going to slap it down on one of these studios." Just spinning a giant roulette wheel, right? With 23 different logos on it, and we'll see which name comes up, and you're going to get to make the Black Panther game. It doesn't work like that, for good reason.
Yeah, I agree. As much as it's fun to speculate, and I did the same recently with everyone's kind of, obsession with this idea that Xbox needs to have this superhero game, of a list of like, if Xbox was going to make a Marvel game, it would be cool if these teams did this. And I had, I want to see, first off, why doesn't Gambit get more love in the Marvel universe? Because Gambit is a goddamn legend. No one shows Gambit any love. So I was just throwing out random, like, Gambit by Ninja Theory, The Punisher by The Coalition, like all these, just like, it would be cool and I could see how it would work. Doctor Strange by Obsidian Entertainment, like, and then I had a bunch of people in the thread being like, they would never do that. These teams don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. This would never happen, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, like, that's not what this thread was about. It was talking about the possibilities. And then you're basically only highlighting the point of these teams probably don't have any interest at all in making any sort of Marvel or superhero game. Like, it's a huge undertaking, and it's a lot of pressure to be like, I'm going to make Batman. Like, if one of the Xbox teams was like, I want to make Batman, I'm sure they could probably do it. I'm sure they could have those conversations and probably make it happen. But which Xbox team wants to do that? Which Xbox team says, I want to deal with the stress and the pressure and the outrage from the fans if we don't get Batman right? So it's a combination of a lot of things, and it's incredibly complicated. But I do agree overall. I don't think Xbox, quote unquote, needs, like, it's not essential to make Xbox a successful platform. But what it does do, as a lot of people have, rightly mentioned, is it brings in a casual audience in a big way. You say Spider-Man, everyone in the world knows Spider-Man. As big as Fallout is, there's a huge percentage of people who have no idea what Fallout or Elder Scrolls is. So those are huge IP in the gaming sphere. Those are incredibly important games, but those are not Spider-Man. You put up the Spider-Man logo, everyone knows it. You put up the Fallout logo, that's not the case. So I do agree from a very casual sense that, if Xbox has a team that wants to make a superhero game, that would probably be a good investment for the overall appeal of the platform. I've also seen the conversation shift to, we had the WB acquisition theories. So I've seen a lot of people say, you know what? No, screw Marvel. Xbox doesn't need Marvel. They need to buy all the DC rights. And what's your take on that? Should we have not only Xbox versus PlayStation, like in the console war space, but now we're going to have PlayStation is Marvel and Xbox is DC in this battling space?
As if we needed more division, as if we needed that even further. If the opportunity comes up, we've heard the rumors, we've heard the whispers, we heard that WB was looking for a sale last year, and then evidently it looks like that didn't pan out, at least not immediately. It looks like WB wants to hold on to most of those teams for now. Yeah. Maybe that changes in the future. Maybe it doesn't. We'll have to wait and see. If the opportunity comes up, yeah, go for it. Take it. WB, those are talented teams. Rocksteady. They're taking their sweet time, but man, Rocksteady made some killer games. Monolith, I think, very flexible studio. They made the Fear shooters. Original Fear is just incredible what they did with the AI. But then they also have made those Middle-earth games. They proved they can do multiple genres. They proved they can handle that stuff. NetherRealm, as a fighting game studio, I mean, come on. NetherRealm, you want to talk about names everybody knows. Everybody knows Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
and NetherRealm.
Yeah.
But only if the opportunity comes up, because rights are a very difficult thing. Again, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Sony didn't go to Marvel and say, "Hey, we want blank check rights on, all these characters. We're paying $10 billion so we can make whatever Marvel game we want." It doesn't work that way. They have pitched it because Insomniac, again, had that passion for Spider-Man and then now Wolverine. It came up very organically. Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers are being handled by Square Enix. Avengers is we're gonna see how Guardians of the Galaxy goes. I have slightly higher hopes,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's still a lot of open questions there. We'll see how it goes. And then they're also Firaxis is doing Midnight Suns, which is the card-based, turn-based game, and that's a very interesting couple of choices there. But hey, I'm rooting for them. I never want a game to fail. I hope for the best. Uh, Rights are a very difficult thing. How does that work? Do you get exclusive rights for 10 years? Do you get they should go for those studios if they get a chance, and by all means, if one of them wants to continue making superhero games, let them. But I get a little wary when people are like, "Oh, buy out the rights." Like I don't know. That's a little big, that's a little much. That's very messy very quickly. You know how complicated some of this stuff. People are always complaining about why wasn't this Spider-Man costume in this game, or why wasn't this Batman costume in this game? Because licensing and rights from different issues, that stuff gets complicated fast. And that's a headache.
Shout out to all the video game lawyers who have to deal with all that boring stuff so we can get
Yep.
a cool crossover in a video game. Because
Big time.
look at all the licensed games that are now unlisted. Licensing is incredibly complicated. Look at the Friday the 13th game. That game had died because of a lawsuit that forbid them from adding anything new to the game. For like years, that game was stuck in limbo because they could only do bug fixes because they were working out a lawsuit involving the Friday the 13th franchise. So that stuff is complicated and that stuff is tricky. So when I see like the Pirates of the Caribbean deal in Sea of Thieves, anything that Xbox is doing now, it needs to live on the Xbox ecosystem and Xbox Game Pass pretty much forever, outside of Forza, because again, as we've seen with Forza, licensing nightmare.
And even then, the very fact that Forza Motorsport, the next one, is going to be a platform, I think one of the reasons that game is going to be a platform, this is just me speculating, this is not official insider information or whatever, is they're going, no, this game is going to live for a long time. We need these rights for this model in perpetuity. We need this song in perpetuity. I don't know that for sure. I wouldn't be surprised, is all I'm saying.
I agree. I think that was probably one of the conversations with Pirates of the Caribbean and Sea of Thieves. Like, we want to do this. We're going to treat it with respect. We're going to do it right, but we cannot lose the rights to this. They have interwoven the lore of Pirates of Caribbean into the world of Sea of Thieves. Like, you can't take that away. Like, once that's in the game, you cannot take that away without drastically impacting the game. So I agree. It's probably boring, but Xbox, when it comes to this licensing, is probably like, we'll do this, but we need it forever. Like, you cannot pull this out away from us in 4 years. And there's probably a lot of people who are like, I don't know. Like, I want to be able to renegotiate terms. I want to be able to squeeze some more money out of you when the time comes. So it's complicated. It's boring, but it is fun to go online and talk about all the wild possibilities. I think the Punisher by the Coalition would be absolutely fire. But
be cool.
Will it ever happen?
Cool.
No, God, probably not. There's probably like a 3% chance that game will ever exist. All right, a couple super chats here I'm going to get to. Harjeet Chani again, crushing it. I think hit is defined like the Oscars. What critics like, not what the players play. I think I would say that's PlayStation's approach, or maybe PlayStation's philosophy, and not so much Xbox's philosophy. Xbox's philosophy, and I think PlayStation is shifting to that, is engagement, is players spending time playing the game, putting hours into the game. I think that's how they're gauging a hit, more than simply this game got a 95 on Metacritic, so therefore it's a hit. Obviously that's important, and obviously that carries weight, but I don't think that's how everyone is defining a hit.
Yeah.
JD Gamer with the super chat says, let's be honest, we're all console warriors here, and Disney is the crazy scientist supplying the advanced arms, and Xbox needs to have these weapons. JD Gamer taking the stance of, Xbox, they need it. They need it. So again, interesting points. I understand, why people feel that way. I understand where people are coming from. I don't think it's a make or break situation for Xbox. And I think realistically, I don't know if you're on the same page, but I think realistically, Xbox and their teams probably aren't that invested in going after these big IP. But
no, I agree with you in the sense that they're not interested in doing it just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
If one of those teams, if I don't know, maybe a couple of years down the road, if Obsidian finishes up Avowed and the only thing on their plate is Josh Sawyer's game that he's directing and The Outer Worlds 2, but you have a couple of teams free and one of them goes, yo, Phil, Matt, we need to talk. That character, we got to do it. We really feel about this. Yeah, there would be phone calls that afternoon.
Yeah.
But that's an if. And again, creative freedom. You need to let that happen organically, or you'll end up with Marvel's Avengers or worse.
Hey, I've heard Marvel's Avengers is good now, Sam.
You know what? Okay, actually, you know what? I'm doing all this bashing. I should be fair and say I've heard excellent things about the War for Wakanda expansion. I haven't played it yet, but I have heard very good things about that. So
yes, I had Marvel Stan Insipid Ghost on recently, and he was trying to convince me that it's worth playing again. I'm skeptical, but I've heard good things from multiple people about it. So maybe it'll have its grant. Maybe it'll be the game it's supposed to be one of these days. Another super chat from JD Gamer who says Microsoft could sit back and let Disney buy Sony movies, then turn around and buy that company. Jeez, big bank takes the little bank. That's some chess. Speaking of the PlayStation showcase in that intro, that's some big brain chess right
there. Yeah, big brain is certainly the words I would apply to that kind of thinking.
Faisal 007 with a super chat says the Batman Family game by the Coalition, maybe Daredevil by Ninja Theory. I was talking to some people on Twitter after I put up that kind of thread about the possibilities, and I saw a lot of people saying Ninja Theory for Daredevil because of the way they handle sound design, and that did make me kind of interested in seeing maybe what a Daredevil game could look like by that team.
I can see that. That's a very interesting connection to make. Hellblade is a game that you have to play it with headphones. You just have to. End of discussion. You got to. You're not playing it if you don't. I can see them doing interesting things that way. I would still have questions, right, about is it first person or is it third person? Is a game actually enjoyable if you take away most of player's sight? But interesting line of thinking.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, but it's fun to get some perspectives about where people are coming from with these ideas. Quick shout out to the 275 people rocking with us. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. We are live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. You guys are killing it with super chats. I got a few more to get here, but yeah, again, if you're digging the Marvel conversations, I appreciate everyone in the chat kind of sharing their thoughts, keeping it civil, keeping it nice, because we can disagree, we can have different takes, but it's video games, so we should be able to have fun regardless of where we stand on the issue. Edward King says, because PlayStation is associating its brand and games with Marvel, Xbox should go to DC and either buy WB Studios or get Suicide Squad or Gotham Knights in Game Pass. DC fits the brand and tone better. Okay, we touched on this a little bit. What are your thoughts on Xbox going after some of these big games as day one Game Pass launches? A Suicide Squad that has multiplayer components, a Gotham Knights that has co-op. But what about those launching into Game Pass day one versus Xbox just outright buying DC?
I think that's an interesting conversation. I think that's a more interesting conversation, honestly, than just buy everything, gobble up everything. Like, at the same time, it would probably depend on launch windows. When are those games launching? Microsoft very cleverly, the game had some issues, certainly, but Outriders was a very clever game to get in at Game Pass at launch. That was a good risk to take. It probably helped that game, even though, again, there were a lot of other issues. MLB, absolute steal, the way that worked out. And And it led at the same time to that being the most successful MLB game ever. More sales than ever, more players than ever. It just helped it out. So I think it's a good idea, but it depends. If that, let's say Gotham Knights is coming out, but it's coming out right next to Redfall. Not a good idea then. Not a
Yeah.
good idea. Don't spend that money. Just let the people who want to buy it on your platform, but your focus needs to be your first party, Redfall. At the same time, if Gotham Knights is coming out in, say, April, let's say April next year, we don't know. Why not? You don't have anything coming out then. You don't have any games in the March to April, May window that we're aware of. Go for it. Probably a little more money. Again, that DC license, but big third party games launching in Game Pass. It's a big deal. It gets people in, it grows that ecosystem, it grows the overall revenue stream. Go for it.
Yeah, I think Xbox is going to do an incredible job filling the gaps, especially next year. We know they have a pretty good output next year. There will be a lot of big first party Xbox games coming out next year, but I think they are going to partner strategically with a lot of these big releases because they can point to Outriders, they can point to MLB. It doesn't matter how big your game is. The Game Pass is making games bigger than they've ever been, which when you're the team behind selling these pitches to a company, that's huge. That's weight. You can say the first time that, MLB ever came to Xbox, it sold more than it has ever sold before. And that is with Game Pass launching it. And then they can probably point to their microtransactions and say, you know what, even with Game Pass, even though we're giving you a fat stack of cash to put this in Game Pass, more people are buying your microtransactions. More people are investing into your game because we put it on our service. So it's going to get to a point where Xbox can kind of flex Game Pass when it comes to these pitches. And as we've seen with Square, big publishers are interested in that because big publishers are interested in those dollars. And if there's dollars to be made, they're going to swoop them up. And if they can just take a fat stack of money and eliminate a lot of risk with the release, they're going to do it. So I think that is more interesting and more compelling when it comes to building up Xbox as the platform to play or as the best value, because when it's an exclusive, you have to play it on that platform regardless. But we're talking big brain chess moves here. If you're Papa Phil and you're getting the big, one of the biggest PlayStation franchises, realistically, MLB The Show is huge. People buy a PlayStation for MLB The Show. When you're getting that day one in Game Pass and you're having people being like, yo, why am I have an Xbox. I would have bought this on PlayStation, but I'm not going to. Or you have people who are like, yo, I only buy MLB The Show every year and I can get it in Game Pass. I'm just going to get an Xbox. So like those moves are the big important moves, I think, is like not taking it away from another platform, but making people realize that it's a better deal to get it on the other platform. And Game Pass is a better deal than what the other platform offers. I think that's the big brain play. If I'm Papa Phil, which I'm not, I probably make a 20th of what he makes, but different conversation for a different day. JD, let me make sure I didn't skip one. All right. JD Gamer here with the super chat says, a big part of the reason that PlayStation was successful last gen was word of mouth. Well, Microsoft needs that same word of mouth. So buy the companies and get the IPs and get the customers, then the engagement. All right, JD Gamer's like, wants Xbox to just swing their bag of money around and just capture every studio and publisher possible, throw it over their shoulder and be like, you want to play these games? Buy an Xbox or get out of my life. I appreciate the enthusiasm, JD. You're bleeding Team Green in a big way, and I understand where that comes from.
You got to make sure it's a good fit. That's the thing. Bethesda, I said this before, I'll say it again. Bethesda was lightning in a bottle. It wasn't just that they were privately owned. It wasn't just that they were available. They fit with the Xbox ecosystem. There were relationships there. They had the kinds of games and studios needed. You can't just buy something for the sake of buying it. You have to make sure it all fits.
I agree. I think the Bethesda thing was this weird, perfect synergy. And you could tell, like when they had that Bethesda Xbox roundtable, you could tell how stoked everyone was. And you could tell these people were friends who have known each other for a long time and now get to work together. And there was this really cool, genuine energy that I feel like we'll probably never see again. I don't think we're ever going to see another acquisition that perfect in my eyes, where every single person on board is stoked about it on that scale at least.
Yeah, at least on that scale. Maybe in terms of an individual team or an
Oh yeah,
individual studio or couple, but like a publisher, I agree with you, Miles. That will never be seen again.
because I as much as I want for me Xbox and Capcom, like that's the big publisher that I want to see. That's the big publisher I think would fill a huge gap in their portfolio, and that is a big publisher I think would bolster Xbox Game Pass in an enormous way. But that being said, I couldn't see a Capcom Xbox roundtable where everyone's like super lovey and joking and like have this long relationship. Like I'm sure people
Right.
are friendly and they have good relationships, but yeah, that Bethesda stuff, it was just magic. It just felt so good.
You could almost say that it just works.
It just, in the infamous words of the legendary Todd Howard, it just works. It. Super chat from Tony Art. Xbox want to appeal to new users, and Marvel is bigger than any IP on Xbox that would appeal to casuals. So a Black Panther, Doctor Strange, or others would pull a lot of new users into the ecosystem. Yeah, we touched on this a little bit. Do you think that's fair? That while Xbox maybe doesn't need it, that it would maybe improve Xbox's market share?
Oh, I agree. It absolutely would. But there's an important asterisk mark that people need to apply. Those IPs are bigger than anything Xbox has if done right. And again, I'm just gonna keep hammering this nail in until it's in, y'all. Creativity has to be there. Passion has to be there. Insomniac was right for Spider-Man. They were literally the perfect studio to take on Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. I have faith in them for Wolverine. We haven't seen it yet, but I have faith in them for Wolverine. We'll see what they do. It has to be the right fit, or it won't be bigger.
Yes. Spider-Man. I know a lot of people talk about Marvel in general being huge. I think it's probably safe to say that Spider-Man is the biggest character in the Marvel universe when it comes to notoriety, when it comes to how much people love it. We all have different characters that we personally love more, but I think the general mind share of Spider-Man is enormous. And even if an Xbox got, let's say, a Doctor Strange exclusive, Doctor Strange is not anywhere near on the same level as Spider-Man. Like if we're talking about market share, if we're talking about pulling in casuals, I don't know that the average casual person is going to buy a Doctor Strange exclusive or buy an Xbox for the Doctor Strange exclusive, in my eyes. All right, another super chat from JD Gamer, who's just, I was cracking up, sorry, while you were talking, because
No, it's all right. It's all right.
he's just doubling down on the console war stuff in a hilarious way. So, in war, you give your enemy no peace. You never allow them to establish a beachhead. You harass them, always never letting them eat, sleep, drink, or think. In peace, example, take away their ability to have third-party exclusives.
Oh my god.
Oh, so
Y'all,
the
when we say console war, it's not literal. You know that, right? Like, just
no
I just
for
want that to be
JD
clear.
JD Gamer is writing the book of the art of console war. He is
Oh,
telling you as a company how to break down your enemy, break them down, crush them, and then eventually they'll be so weakened, so defeated that Xbox will just absorb PlayStation. And that's the future I think JD Gamer wants to live in.
Um, that's when we have a little thing come in called antitrust. You remember how the Bethesda deal went through so smooth, so quick, didn't take a lot of time, the legal rubber stamp just approve. You can't just buy out everyone, y'all. You can't buy up everything. You got to be okay. PlayStation, rightfully so, has a reputation right now of buying third-party exclusives. Right? They are doing it. They're doing a lot of it. They're going to continue doing it. They're not doing it for every game. They're not doing it for literally everything. They are being very strategic. The ZeniMax deal was happening. Conversations were swirling. A couple of different players were in the conversation on that. Someone was like, "Yo, we gotta secure the bag here. We gotta secure a couple of things." So they went after Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, the two closest games from ZeniMax. The big Square Enix legacy on multiple platforms, but especially PlayStation. You know, to go after Forspoken, a new IP from those teams. Go after Final Fantasy 16, Knights of the Old Republic. We talked about that. There's a history there. That
Yeah.
was very intentional. You're going after it strategically. They're not buying out everything. And if they're not doing that, Xbox doesn't need to either. You have to maintain healthy relationships with third party, because just aggressively buying for the sake of buying does not build healthy relationships, and actually can lead to a very short-term gain but a long-term loss.
Yeah, it needs to benefit everyone involved, and everyone needs to understand that that's the best approach. I think the game publishing partnerships is something Xbox is going to
Mhm.
lean into more, and that's why we've seen figures like Sarah Bond out in the public more and talking about their strategy there, because they are open and they will be making more acquisitions. They have told us that. That is not an insider industry secret. That is public information, and they want you to know that. They have also said they are not just going to buy anyone and everyone for the sake of doing it, that it needs to make sense. It needs to be a good fit and somebody they have a good relationship with. And I think that's also critically important. Using the publishing partnerships to be like, hey, we like what you do. We want to build a good relationship with you. We want to see how this works. We want to fund your game. Like, let's look at Avalanche and IO Interactive. I think those will be
Mhm.
good test grounds to see, like, is this somebody that's a good fit for Xbox Game Studios? Let's say Contraband comes out as a huge success. Everyone at Avalanche loved working with Xbox. I think the conversations of an acquisition there are more likely than just out of the blue Xbox being like, yo, Avalanche, you're for sale. We're going to buy you. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't think that's what Xbox wants to do. So again, it is fun to speculate. It is fun to have these conversations. But I want to believe that Xbox is being very transparent and honest with their approach, and to set the expectation that just because a company is on the market, they are not necessarily going to buy them. All right. JD Gamer again says Microsoft could say you shall not pass and offer all devs and publishers a blanket 20% more to bring their content to Xbox instead of PlayStation. I think that ends it. Yes, the cuts.
I think some bean counters at Microsoft throw a revolution if you do that. Like, it's fun to speculate. It's fun to speculate. I'm not going to take that away from anyone.
Yes, exactly. I love going down the rabbit hole. I really, really do. But I also get that, sometimes it's not the most realistic. Okay, we're gonna transit. There's some more super chats. I will get caught up on those. Appreciate you guys dropping those in. You're killing it. But I do want to transition topics a little bit here, and I want to talk about Konami, Sam. Konami, and more specifically, the ongoing saga of Silent Hill being at every PlayStation showcase for the last 10 years. Every time there's a PlayStation showcase, somebody on some forum says, "Oh damn, here it comes, dude. The PlayStation exclusive Silent Hill is coming, dude. PlayStation's doing it, dude." And then it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. The reason I want to talk about it right now is because there are interesting developments that point to a Silent Hill actually existing,
Mhm.
actually being in development, and realistically, not exaggerating here, realistically having a possibility of being revealed in the near future. So that's why I want to talk about it, because ahead of E3, we saw that Konami of all companies was going to be at E3 this year, and they were going to talk about some key projects at E3. Um, but then they had to come out and say, due to constraints, time constraints, we're not going to be ready to show these big projects. But we will have updates on our key projects in the coming months. So since then, I've been speculating as to what is the venue? What is the best venue for Konami to come out and reveal a Silent Hill, if not an Xbox showcase, if not a PlayStation showcase? When does Konami show Silent Hill, Sam? And I guess first off, do you think Silent Hill is even real?
That's a dangerous question right there. That's one that's like, even if it is real, it almost feels like if you say it is, then it'll immediately get canceled. And just like, I don't know, dangerous things happen with Silent Hill. There's not a for such a beloved franchise. It's a rough history. I'm going to be real. It's a very, very rough history. A lot of people, including myself, like to think of Silent Hill 2 and just stop there and not ever think about anything else. So with that in mind, I do think a Silent Hill game is coming. I do think it's multi-platform. I think we both know who the developer is. I'm not going to pretend I'm anywhere near as enthused as you are. Uh, but I think it is happening, and I think if it doesn't get canceled, because this is Konami we're dealing with here, anything could happen. Keep that in mind. I think the Game Awards would be a good venue to reveal that.
I agree. Again, Konami has had a less than stellar history, especially in
Mhm.
recent years. And we saw this weird decline with a lot of big video game publishers around the same time, where they thought they had a formula that they could turn to, and they thought that they could do X, Y, and Z, and no matter what they put out, people would buy it and they would make money. And as we saw with EA, as we saw with Konami, no, that is not the case. You cannot just put out whatever you want and people will buy it because they love that IP. They will buy it once, and then you will have to work years and years and years to rebuild that trust and rebuild those relationships. And so we are in a resurgence with Konami and EA where they, more than anything else, at least understand financially that they have to put out good games. Like, they can't get away with putting out whatever they want anymore. They have to actually get the right team, use the right resources, and make a good game. So for me, that makes the prospect of a new Silent Hill a lot more exciting. If you asked me 3 years ago if I even wanted a new Silent Hill, I would have said no. Please, God, don't let. If Konami put out a Silent Hill 3 years ago, it would have been terrible. It would have been a god awful cash grab, terrible game. Look at Metal Gear Survive. Look at Contra Rogue Core. They did not care about their IP. They just wanted to see how little effort they could put in and how little money they could put in and see what the return looked like and see if they could just keep doing that. But yeah, I agree that Silent Hill could get canceled, but I also think that Konami spent some more time finding the right team for the job. And Konami, I know Konami took pitches from several teams on a Silent Hill. Which ones got signed off on, how many got signed off in, I don't know. I don't have that information, but I know that Konami was pitched multiple Silent Hill projects by multiple developers. And I people, different folks are saying that there are two in development still. I don't know that that's the case. I
Maybe.
maybe yeah, we've heard one's a reboot, one's a remake. I don't know what the truth is there. I'm expecting one Silent Hill game to be revealed in the near future, and I think if you're doing it, the Game Awards, like Silent Hill, the whole saga with that, and Jeff Keighley being a part of that whole Silent Hills saga.
Mhm.
Oh, let me paint a picture for you here of how bonkers this video game awards would be if we had Kojima, we had Jeff Keighley, we had them both at the Game Awards together. We have Kojima come out with Phil Spencer, announce his weird cloud-based Xbox exclusive. And then while Kojima's on stage as just a troll, as a big troll tease, they reveal the new Silent Hill. He doesn't have anything to do with it, but he's on stage for the reveal of the new Silent Hill.
Definitely tough because of the pandemic and how pre-recorded this stuff has to be, or
Mhm.
well, planned in advance, not pre-recorded for Geoff shows specifically. So I think it's tough to do it that way, but I like the picture you paint.
Yes,
I
I
like
don't
the picture
I
you
don't know
paint.
how realistic it is. Probably not realistic at all, but it would be the ultimate end to this Silent Hills saga, the abandoned saga. All these theories and speculations that have roped Kojima into whatever the next Silent Hill game, despite everyone saying that that's not what this is. So I want it just for the memes, just for the trolls, just to that for some folks to have that like, oh, they're doing it, and then be like, oh, this is not a Kojima joint. But so yeah, I think you're right. I think the Game Awards are the best venue, and I think the more I hear and the more I kind of speculate on what the Game Awards are going to look like and what we know is in development but hasn't been shown yet, I'm thinking the Game Awards could be pretty stacked this year. I'm
I think
thinking
that, yeah.
I'm thinking Xbox and others will be going pretty hard at the Game Awards.
Well, here's the thing. I can definitely say this. This is not too insidery, but like Xbox likes the metrics they get from the Game Awards. That is a fact. I can tell you that full stop. And I've seen some in the Xbox community say, Why do they give Jeff Keighley anything? Why are they say?" Because they like it.
Hmm.
They like giving him stuff they're gonna continue to give him stuff. We saw that, and I don't want to go into that rabbit hole, but they gave him Halo Infinite's release date
Uh-huh.
instead of their own show, okay? I don't know what other evidence y'all need. They're gonna give him big guns. They gave him Perfect Dark from the Initiative, that big reveal. They gave him the Xbox Series X and Hellblade 2
Yes.
being revealed. Most metal reveal of all time. I still love it. I still go back to that trailer. Can't wait, Ninja Theory. Take your time. But yeah, they're going to give him games, y'all. And I agree with you. That would be a good place for this rumored/reported Kojima game.
Let's do it. Let's we all want the E3 of dreams. We all want the showcase of dreams where it's just banger after banger after banger. With this PlayStation showcase, we had people who wanted the Metal Gear Solid remake. They wanted Silent Hill. They wanted all the Bloodborne 2. Like, people were expecting that. All of that at this PlayStation showcase. And that's very unrealistic. That's a lot to ask from anyone, but we all want that dream showcase. We all want it just for fun. And maybe Game Awards this year will have at least a few of those, like, damn, they actually did it moments. And Silent Hill, I hope, is one. I want it to be revealed. I want us to move past the endless speculation regarding Silent Hill.
If for no other reason, regardless of how the game turns out, right? Like, even if that doesn't pan out well, just because it puts an end to the conversation, right? And we can all move on collectively
together. We can all, hand in hand, move past the Silent Hill speculation. I'm going to get to some super chats as well here. Edward King says, another question to ask, if not Marvel. Xbox could go for other licensed brands for exclusives. Star Wars, Middle Earth, Terminator, Transformers, etc. They definitely could, and I think we've touched on this in a big way, saying it just needs to make sense, and it needs to be a team that would actually be passionate about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I think we're on the same page here that Xbox could do it if they wanted to. There's nothing stopping Xbox from doing it, but it doesn't sound like they're mandating it. They're not going to WB. They're not going to Disney and saying, all right, these are the IPs you're going to give us, and we're going to figure out which team's going to make it. Okay, super chat from Cade Forever. Man, that KOTOR remake was a real joy, but also a kick in the nuts. I doubt Xbox fans will ever get that game, even if it was confirmed as a timed exclusive. I see a Final Fantasy VII situation here. Dum-bum-dum-bum.
I don't know. I think the sole fact that it is Star Wars, if it was a permanent exclusive,
they would have said
they would have said, yeah. I'm not saying Disney is opposed to giving them a permanent Star Wars exclusive. I'm saying Disney would have just had them say it from the beginning. I don't think this is Final Fantasy is weird, but that's also Square Enix, and let's just be honest, PlayStation has a really good relationship with Square Enix. They work with them really well. Final Fantasy 14, what's going on with that? Bill, just reminder, said that was coming. What's happening? All these games getting extended. Forspoken is a 2-year deal. PlayStation has a good relationship with Square Enix. I wouldn't apply that to any other stuff going on.
Yeah, PlayStation, specifically with Final Fantasy, has been in this state of, like, we want the brand association in a big way. We are buying these long exclusives. We're not buying Square, but, like, we're hearing about 2-year exclusivity for Forspoken. We don't know, like, everyone assumed the exclusivity for Final Fantasy VII was 1 year. Clearly that's not the case. We're well beyond 1 year. So we know it's coming to other platforms at some point. The question is just when, and are you willing to wait? Are you going to wait 2 years for every Final Fantasy? And that's where PlayStation's like, yeah, it's cheaper for us to get this exclusivity up front. And we know Final Fantasy fans are not going to wait 2 years to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like,
no.
And we can just expand the audience, like, to people who didn't want to wait after the fact. Like, if people want to buy it 2 years later, sick. Here you go. It's on Xbox. Buy it away. Like, so that's where PlayStation's finding success, is they are being aggressive with certain franchises and certain publishers. Square, a key example of that. So, Sam, when is Final Fantasy VII Remake coming, huh?
I don't know. Gee, who? I'm not getting involved in that. I don't know. I will freely admit that when they said at least 1 year, I thought it was going to be very shortly after that. I know the pandemic is a thing that probably did throw some wrinkles in, but maybe the deal was actually for longer. Maybe the PS5 version was negotiated and there was some extra time on that. Like when they did the PS5 version with the Yuffie DLC, they were like, "Hey, let's throw another year in there, sprinkle some seasoning on it." I don't know. That's just me spitballing out loud. I think a good guess is 2 years after, right? I think that's a decent, reasonable guess, but it's a guess.
Exactly. We don't know. It's coming at some point. There's been speculation with the Game Awards coming up. I'm not expecting that at the Xbox show by any stretch of the imagination. They've pretty much told us not to expect that. But Square Enix is having a show. So I'm not saying I'm buying into this theory, but there are people who think maybe Square Enix will have some stuff to show for that's coming to Xbox at this showcase as well. But who knows? If it's getting shown this year, I think that's the place to do it. But Game Award, who knows? Game Awards, Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to Xbox.
And PC. Can't leave PC out here.
Oh, yeah. That's true. I keep forgetting that one is not on PC in any capacity right now.
That's right. That's
a
right.
full PlayStation exclusive. That's right. JD Gamer with another super chat says, big brain strategy. Microsoft should buy Sega, Mistwalker, IO, Crytek, NetherRealm, Telltale Games, and the cherry on top, Capcom. That gives Xbox fighters, action, JRPG, strategy, platformers, and more. Who's with me? Is what JD, you've got some theories. You'd be an aggressive businessman.
Steve Ballmer would like JD. Steve Ballmer would like JD, definitely.
Super chat from Kendrick Starr, who says, before Xbox buys more devs and IP, let's see if they can make games for the ones they already own. Also, Wolverine will be another Batman clone like Spider-Man. Okay. Downplaying that a little bit. I see you.
On the first part, I definitely agree, actually. I think execution is different than promise. I think they're doing a good job executing so far with their acquisitions, but they do need to execute on the rest. Make sure you roll out Redfall and Starfield properly. Make sure you give them the proper marketing, the proper QA, the proper time. Show that Bethesda is a proper part of Xbox first party. 2 publishers, 1 first party family. I definitely agree with that. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, even if you are like hardcore to the Xbox camp, Xbox is your preferred platform. You love Xbox. It is fair to look at the criticisms of how they've released certain games and say, like, I would rather see Xbox deliver on these games that they've promised in a successful way before I get excited about future acquisitions.
Right.
Sorry, continue.
No, I was just gonna say, I somewhat disagree with Spider-Man being a Batman clone. I think that's a little simplistic, but I do agree it'll be interesting to see where Wolverine falls, because I don't think a Wolverine game plays like Spider-Man. He's not scampering up poles and swinging around. And Wolverine is just, he enters a bar and he's the only one coming out of that bar. I want to see M-rated Wolverine, claws out. I don't know. I trust Insomniac, man. I trust Insomniac.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've heard that Wolverine is going to have a much different tone than Spider-Man, and Wolverine's going to be their approach at a more like dramatic Marvel hero, and they're going to have a more like a heavier story narrative with Wolverine than Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's very light. It's very light on details. That game is far out.
Yes.
In case it was not obvious to everyone. Spider-Man 2 getting a 2023. Wolverine is probably early 2024. Just going ahead and embracing you. Very early in development. But they did say that while there are similarities, he's a hero, he wants to protect the innocent, that it is going to be, I think, rougher hewn. It is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I want to see those themes explored. Like, the reason I am more interested in, say, like a Punisher game in this day and age is after watching the Netflix series, you got to see kind of the story that they could tell. And while there was plenty of just senseless murder and there was plenty of gore and extreme violence, it also understood that and kind of showed the dark side of that and what that can do to you as an individual. And I would love to see Marvel characters explored in that light, as opposed to here's the bad guy, you're the good guy, kill everyone and anything in your way, and then kill that person, and then everyone rides off into the sunset together. I think we've evolved the formula a little bit, and I would hope that,
For sure.
we've seen it in movies, and I want to see it in games too. Okay. I'm making sure I'm all caught up. Everyone's just been killing it. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate JD Gamer's Art of Console War takes here.
Absolutely enthusiastic.
So we're getting close to 2 hours here. So I'm going to start winding it down. If you guys have any final questions, any other topics you want us to cover, drop that in the chat now. Huge shout out to everyone who's tuned in. As you guys are dropping questions, as we're doing that, Sam, it's been an absolute blast. It's been awesome having you on. One more time for all the amazing folks out there, where can they harass you about your Marvel superhero Xbox takes?
Yes, please at me, please. I love it. I'm totally not being sarcastic. You can find me on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. That's Tolbert. Yeah, I keep a little quiet, but sometimes I share dog pictures, which everyone loves. I share food, and of course, I talk a ton about video games and movies, TV. Yeah, come have a conversation. It's a good time. Share the news, share my opinions on stuff I'm writing or working on. And Miles, thank you so much for having me on. It has been a blast, man.
Oh,
absolute blast.
Took too long. Glad to have you on. Yeah, I'm working more to get more folks from Windows Central on here as well to like showcase, there are actual human beings behind the outlet, and it's not just this hate mob of people just hating on Halo, and that's how we get paid or whatever.
You're saying we don't all share the exact same opinion on everything, and that's why different opinion pieces can be published? Is that what you're insinuating?
Despite popular opinion, yes. I remember when I first started covering Sea of Thieves for Windows Central, I had people hitting me up, be like, I thought Windows Central hated Sea of Thieves. So like, that's not how it works. That's not how any outlet works. I love Sea of Thieves. Maybe Jez hates Sea of Thieves, but Jez isn't. He's a big part of Windows Central, but he's not Windows Central as the entity. He's not just.
I think he'd come around. It has fishing now.
Yeah, see, I got a good fraud alert to Jez because he doesn't like the fishing in Sea of Thieves, and Sea of Thieves has the best fishing. So he says he likes fishing in Sea of Thieves, or he says he likes fishing in video games, but tells me he doesn't like fishing in Sea of Thieves. And I gotta say, something suspect, Jez Corden. Something is suspect. Super chat coming in last minute from Yo Donnie, who says, my belief is that Wolverine needs a new engine and physics. Every Insomniac game has been an on-rails iteration on our beloved Sunset Overdrive. I personally I cannot fathom an on-rails Wolverine, but maybe that's just me.
No, I don't think it needs a new engine. In fact, I would actually argue the complete opposite. I think one of the reasons Insomniac is so efficient and they are able to move so quickly compared to everyone else is because these games are going to share an engine. They're going to share some assets between them. They've heavily hinted they're set in the same universe. Like they're building the Insomniac Marvel universe, essentially. But at the same time, I do think it's fair to say Wolverine needs to play differently. Wolverine should not handle like Spider-Man. Wolverine is brutal. He's visceral. He's a dude with claws, but he just keeps on coming. And he keeps on coming. So, yeah, let's see. Look, Insomniac, I know they've had a long string of T-rated releases, but this is the same studio that did Resistance. They know how to do grit and gore, y'all. They haven't lost that. So, let's give them a chance.
Yeah, let's see how this turns out. And then with that tease, if the Hulk is in it, oh mama. Oh
boy.
If they give me, if I can play as Wolverine and the Hulk in one game, oh Lord have mercy. Because I've been shouting that if Xbox did an exclusive, that they need to revisit some of the incredible Hulk bangers of yore and give us Crackdown, but good, and give us the Hulk. That's what I want as a Marvel fan.
I can see it.
Super chat from Harjeet Chani says, hey Miles, have you thought about making this a 3-person format? It's something that I would be open to for like certain episodes, but I personally really like the intimate, the one-on-one is something that I specifically designed for the show because I don't know, I just like it, and it makes the conversation more natural in my opinion, and it's a little more focused on getting to know the person on the show. Because
It seems to be working with the amazing success and the run of guests you've had. So
yeah,
you'll get no pushback from me.
I've been surprised when I hit people up and they're just like, "Yes, let's go, let's do it." I'm in. I'm like, "Okay, sick." Way easier than I thought. I thought I'd have to get ignored by like 20 DMs before you would respond. But yeah, no, I really like the one-on-one. So the overall format will never be more than one-on-one. But I'm not opposed to if multiple devs or if multiple people want to come on and we do like a special 3-person episode. But super chat from JD Gamer, I love you. How did the KOTOR deal happen, and what should Xbox do about it? Sam, what does Xbox need to do to counter the KOTOR deal?
Okay. All right. So how did it happen? We talked about this earlier in the show. Very quickly, I said my opinion. I know nothing, no insider information. I found out this remake was even happening like very shortly before the show, and I didn't know it was even exclusive. So my take is they probably had discussions. Aspire, as Miles said, probably even went to Microsoft first. But looking at their roadmap, looking at the games they have versus PlayStation, they probably just weren't willing to spend that kind of money. I imagine Game Pass came up as a part of it. Hey, if we do this as an exclusive, can we get it in Game Pass as well? Maybe Aspire and Lucasfilm were willing, or maybe one wasn't. We don't know. At the end of the day, PlayStation paid more money. That's how that happened.
So is Xbox just going to sit back and take this, Sam? Is that what they're supposed to do? Phil Spencer's
No.
supposed to roll over and die and say, "Sorry, Xbox fans, you don't get Star Wars."
I think they need to build up games for their fan base, but I think that's what they're doing right now. Again, not to drum up that whole thing again, but they've said they're looking at more acquisitions. It's going to happen. We just don't know how many or when, but it will. They've said as much. They need to execute on games. They've announced a very, 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 very long list of games. I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but they have a lot of games without release dates right now. You know, let's get some of these games release dates. When is Avowed coming? I want to know more about Avowed. The idea of this Obsidian take on maybe the Elder Scrolls formula, but set in the Pillars of Eternity world. What's going on with that? Execute on what you've got. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, let's be real. The Xbox slate of upcoming games is absolutely stacked.
It's ridiculous.
Like, even if you're comparing it directly to PlayStation, which I know a lot of you want to do, if we're comparing just the sheer volume of games that are coming from Xbox first party, you could say that this was PlayStation's response to Xbox's stacked lineup. Is realistically how you can look at it, because Xbox already told you we're doing XYZ. We have all of these games coming out, and we have all these games from amazing teams coming out. And so I don't think it's that Xbox needs to respond immediately. They need to come out on Monday and say, "We bought Rockstar, Grand Theft Auto's an exclusive." I think both companies have shown you, like, we're in. We're all in on this. We are taking this seriously, and we are going to give you as many banging games as we can humanly do without hopefully crunching these teams into oblivion.
And if I can sort of end that on a positive non-console war note, I would say to people, I understand if you can't get both consoles, I get it. Not everyone can. It's tough to even get one with the chip shortages. I respect that.
Yep.
I get it. But I think, me personally, objectively, if you look at Xbox and PlayStation, both of their first parties are in a better place right now than they have ever been before. That's my opinion on that. But I think we have good games ahead all around.
Yes, and I shouldn't say I always get grief, but I do get grief consistently whenever I talk positive about Nintendo. Obviously, Nintendo has their problems with some stuff I don't support. I did not like the way they handled the Mario, the 3D collection. I didn't buy it for that reason. That being said, Nintendo is also slapping out amazing first-party games, slapping out more exclusives than they've had. The platform that they have is more successful than it's been in a long time. So everyone's doing well, and we can celebrate everyone. We can criticize everyone, but it doesn't have to be this definitive, "This is me. I'm Team Green, and that's it. Sorry, Team Blue. Sorry, Team Red. I don't care. I don't care what you're doing, because what you're doing is trash, and my team is the winner." Obviously, I prefer Xbox. I talk about this on the show all the time. Like, I run an Xbox-centric show. I work for Windows Central. Obviously, I really like Xbox. But I can also have conversations about Nintendo and be excited. I can have conversations about PlayStation and be excited. I can have conversations about weird PC games and be excited. So it doesn't have to be a console war. And that's something I stress on the show a lot, because I know some people want me to come on here and just dunk on PlayStation. Everybody goes, yeah, you did it. Good job. I agree, Miles. PlayStation is bad and you're cool, but that's not my vibe. And I feel like overall this chat is kind of all on the same page, and I am incredibly grateful for everyone who tunes in, has conversations in the chat, and has fun, because it's always civil. It's mostly civil. I don't usually see people fighting in the chat, even though we have people like JD Gamer who have some extremely passionate takes about Xbox. That's okay. That is totally fine. And on that wholesome note of coming together under the joy and glory of gaming, we are going to end this episode of Xbox Chaturdays. So thanks to everyone who tuned in, and we will be back next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Peace.
Take care, y'all.